Welcome to the Wealth Studying Podcast. This is episode 452. Today is August 29th, 2024. I'm your host, John Pugliano. I'm also the founder and money manager at investablewealth.com. Well, today I want to give you a quick market update to kind of get caught up on a lot of big events, or at least media promoted big events that have occurred over the last 3 weeks or so. And I also, if you read the title of this episode, I want to talk more about wealth as an individual basis and on the side, so not so much about investing, but on your own personal lifestyle choices. That's ultimately how you build wealth. It's all, been a reoccurring theme of the Wealth Studying Podcast for over 10 years now. I should probably have split today's episode up into 2 separate episodes, but hey, we're approaching Labor Day weekend, and if I want to get something out and published, I don't have time to be doing that right now. So here it is. You're going to get it all together. First off, market update. Now, if you remember going back about 3 weeks ago at the beginning of the month, we had a big major pullback. Some jobs numbers came out unfavorable. People started talking about the SAM rule and the carry trade in Japan. And, this is typical of the way everything gets amplified in the media and on social media, where people that have never heard of the SAM rule or people that couldn't find Japan on a map or couldn't spell yen, all of a sudden, everybody becomes an economic expert in these particular areas. Hey, but you know what? Here we are 3-4 weeks later. The market didn't crash. The S&P 500 overall not even correct. It didn't even get anywhere near its 200-day moving average. It barely fell down below its 100-day moving average. And the great news, what I'm really optimistic about right now, is that we are finally starting to see that broadening out beyond just a handful of stocks. If you look at under the surface, the overall S&P 500, or you look at the mid-cap stocks, or you even look at the small-cap stocks, we are seeing prices start to appreciate in a way that we haven't seen for 2 or 3 years. And that's not just because people are magically starting to buy those stocks. The reason the prices of those stocks are going up is because for the first time in probably a year and a half, those companies are starting to show profit and margin improvement. But don't take my word for it. Go pull up some charts. Look at the ETF RSP. RSP is the equal weight version of the S&P 500. When we had the little mini crisis, the equal weight version of the S&P 500, although it was more volatile than the overall S&P 500, it held up pretty darn well. And since then, it's gone on to put in all-time new record highs. And right now, every one of its leading important moving day averages are all on the rise. The 20-day, the 50-day, the 100-day, the 200-day, they're all pointing up. And that story is pretty much spelled out under the surface in all the other areas. Pull up a chart of the ETF RSPT. Now, again, this is an equal weighted index, but it's just based on the technology stocks. So it's sort of like the QQQs or the NASDAQ 100, but instead of just focusing on those really big, huge mega cap names, it's equally split up across every holding in the indices. And again, earlier this month when the market fell apart, it got hit hard. There was a big major sell-off. It, for a day or so, did dip below its 200-day moving average. And while it hasn't gone on to put on all-time new record highs like both the S&P 500 and the equal weight version of the S&P 500 have, it is comfortably above its 50-day and its 20-day moving average. And although the 50-day moving average is flat, we are seeing, what looks like an increase in the 100 and the 200-day, that it is moving in the right direction. Things are even better if you get out of the technology sector and if you look at the profitable version of the mid-cap stocks and the profitable small-cap stocks. So this would be ETFs like MDY or SPSM. Now I'm emphasizing profitable because you've heard me say many times over the last couple years, I've been very concerned about not only the lack of performance with mid-cap stocks, but the fact that they just couldn't get above their long-term moving average. And I'm talking like 4-year, 1,000-day moving average. We've never gone into a major market meltdown without the small cap stocks dropping below that level. And in the post-pandemic recovery, the small cap stocks never recovered. These companies are finally starting to be profitable. Not all of them, though. You still have a good 38 or so percent of small cap stocks which are unprofitable, which is why I don't recommend of just willy-nilly buying into small cap stocks. You want to stay with the S&P 600, or in terms of the mid-cap stocks, an index like the S&P Mid-Cap 400. And you can see that illustrated in those two ETFs I mentioned, MDY and SPSM. They filter for not only looking at small or mid-cap stocks, but also looking for companies that are profitable. And those two charts look very much the same. They both degraded severely at the beginning of the month when we had the big panic. They both broke down below their 200-day moving average, but they bounced up above that. They literally only hit those severe ends of the 200-day moving average on a single day. Since then, everything's moving up and to the right, and I'm encouraged by that again, not because it's just the technicals we're seeing in the chart, but because when second quarter earnings came out and had just been announced over the last few weeks, we're seeing that profitability and margins are improving in these companies. And again, this is the first time in like 18 months that we've seen this positive growth in earnings. You can see that in individual stocks. And by the way, I personally don't invest in these ETF indices. I prefer to buy individual stocks. And so if you look at companies that tend to be cyclical, and these are what I'm favoring right now because of what I think are long-term trends in the United States with more manufacturing and more industrialization, you're seeing these companies that had been underperformers starting to do better. These are things like just packaging companies, specialty chemical companies, companies related to even industries that aren't doing that well right now, which would be like the automotive industry. So whether you're looking at railroads like Norfolk Southern or Union Pacific or CSX, or you're looking at industrial machinery manufacturing type companies like Nordson or Lincoln Electric, or telecommunication equipment companies like Ciena, and even the mundane specialty chemical companies like Celanese, Dow, Eastman, PPG Industries, Olon, all these companies that I own a little sliver of, they're virtually all showing improvement over these past 3 or 4 weeks, even as the economy is potentially slowing down and as unemployment is going up. And again, as you heard me say many times, the reason the economy is slowing down, and really we have to even debate whether it is or not, GDP just got estimated today to be at 3%, which, hey, it's an election year. I get it. The numbers are manipulated, but you can just look outside your window and see there is a thriving, growing economy out there where people are constantly spending money. If you're on the lower end of the income level, you're not spending as much, but the guys that have money are certainly have a lot of it and are spending it. And so we're seeing these more cyclical type industrial companies are improving and they're coming out of their funk. All that makes me more optimistic, especially when you factor in the more traditional higher tech or technology type companies like, Salesforce and Adobe. They hadn't really participated in the artificial intelligence boom. And in fact, a lot of their stock prices, I think, were deteriorated from that. Those companies are improving as well, and they will be implementing these faster chips and more artificial intelligence into their overall operations, which should make them more profitable. So while every day I still worry about all the geopolitical issues, I worry about the second largest economy in the world, which is China, and it continues to slow down and can't advance. That's a long-term problem. The hot kinetic wars that are going on in Ukraine, in Israel, in the Red Sea. Yes, those are real areas of concern. They've gone on far longer than people thought they would. They could easily escalate and turn into a larger global problem. So there's always something to worry about, and I do remain worried about those specific geopolitical events. But overall, the U.S. economy, particularly the nuts and bolts version of the U.S. economy, I think is improving, and we are finally starting to get through the shutting down of non-essential businesses. I mean, all the stuff that we have gone through since 2020, I think we're coming out of it, and apparently we're coming out pretty darn good because, again, look at interest rates, especially Fed funds rate being at the highest level in 23 years, and yet even with the yield curve being inverted for close to 2 years now, we haven't gone into a recession, and the economy continues to grow, in spite of all those obstacles. But I digress, and I took way too long. Hey, let's get back into the other reason I'm doing today's episode, and if you read the title, I named this episode Lamborghini Income and Toyota Lifestyle. And this is where I transition to, away from the investing side and the stock side of building wealth to the lifestyle aspect of it. And if you read the tagline for the Wealthsteading podcast, I say that this podcast is a lifestyle to build and preserve wealth. That's what I've been trying to preach here for the last 10 years. There's no secret to getting rich. There's no secret to building wealth. It's all about 3 steps: learning to earn, learning to save, and learning to invest. And that process is just like a 3-leg stool. You need all 3 legs to hold you up. And if one leg is absent or one is much shorter than the other 2, you're going to have instability in your wealth building process because you need all 3. You have to be able to make money. You have to be disciplined enough to save a large percent of it. And then you have to take that money you've saved and you have to take care of opportunities and invest it so that that money works for you and makes more money so that you can save that money and reinvest it and make even more money. Now, I say all this not because I love money. I love freedom. And it took me a while to learn this, but I did eventually learn it over my adult life that money can buy you happiness if you use it to buy the right things. And what you use it to buy is your freedom. You create a career or a business that's a lifestyle of things that you enjoy doing, things that you not only enjoy doing, but other people find a benefit to those things. And so as Earl Nightingale said 50 or more years ago, he said, to become rich, you must first enrich others. I didn't learn that till I was about 35, 36 years old. And even once I learned it, I had to apply it. But once I did, and once I understood how to not only earn my money and how to save my money, but how to invest it wisely in myself and in other businesses that are profitable, then the wealth just takes care of itself. But I think the hardest part of that earn, save, invest is the saving part. The world is set up to get you to be a consumer. Everything you see in media, whether you think it's an advertisement or not, it is an advertisement. And it's trying to get you to change your behavior so that you spend money on something that's being promoted. So if you want to build your wealth, you have to have the discipline to shut down your consumption and say, no, I'm not going to buy that. Again, thus the title of this podcast, Lamborghini Income and Toyota Lifestyle. That can sum up my life right there and how I've made all my money. I've earned money like you would need to buy a Lamborghini. I could afford a Lamborghini. But you know what? I don't own a Lamborghini. I have no desire to buy a Lamborghini. I look at transportation as being, utilitarian function. Does it get me where I need to be? Is it reliable? Does it get me there comfortably? I use Toyota as a euphemism for just a really good quality car. Actually, right now, personally, me and my wife, we both drive Subarus. I am looking at a Toyota maybe for my next purchase. But regardless, and even if I would buy a top-of-the-line car, you're not going to see me buy a super luxury or a super sports or performance car, in the scale of something like a Lamborghini, which I had actually Googled what they cost because I have no idea. I've never looked at them. But my understanding is that they're probably somewhere, well above $200,000 is the starting price to get into a Lamborghini. I don't get that much function or enjoyment out of driving my vehicle that I would spend that much on a car. Right? That's why I drive Subarus or Toyotas or Hondas. Now, I'm not saying you can't buy nice things or have nice things. I think I do have nice things. But I don't have anywhere near what I could, quote, afford. Because if I could afford all the things that consumerism wants me to buy given my net worth and my income, then I wouldn't have my net worth. Because I would have spent it on all these other things things that I really don't need. Have you noticed how many people live in really big, nice, expensive houses, and yet they have really crappy family relationships? A big house doesn't mean a good home. There's a difference. And I would argue that having a big, expensive house can always be detrimental to your net worth because you're always spending more in that house than you really need. Where on the other side of it, if you have a truly good home life, that's not detrimental to your wealth, that enhances your wealth. But I digress. Listen, I play this game with some of my clients, and it was started by one of my clients. We'll just call him Dr. John. I know he listens to the podcast, so shout out to Dr. John. He's the first one that did a variation of a game that I often play with my clients. And what happened was he sent me a picture of two cars in a parking lot. Now, this is a long time ago. I don't remember the exact specifics, but basically there was a really nice, new, expensive, maybe luxurious sports car, and next to it was like an old Toyota. Okay, and the caption to the text he sent me with that picture said, "Which one of these cars is mine and which one belongs to my hourly employee?" And obviously, Dr. John, who is a high income and more importantly, a high net worth individual, he owned the old Toyota, a 10 or 12-year-old Toyota, and his hourly worker, which probably is living paycheck to paycheck, had this beautiful, nice, brand new, expensive sports luxury vehicle. And I've told other clients about that over the years, and, every now and then that shows up in my text or my email. Picture those two cars and, which one do you think I drive? Now, again, that doesn't mean that none of my clients own nice cars or expensive things, but it means that because they are my clients and because I'm selective in who I want to work with, because effectively, I have two rules. Number one is that I only work with people that I honestly think that I can help, right? And that's not just because I want to live that way. It's a good business practice. If I only work with people I can help, then those people are happy. They make more money. I make more money, and they refer other people to me. So it's a good business strategy to not go after anybody as a client or customer, but only the people you can really benefit. And the other rule that I have for selecting my clients is that I work with people that, even though they're not maybe a millionaire today, they're leading that millionaire next door lifestyle, right? That lifestyle that they have maybe not a Lamborghini income, but they have an above average income, but their consumption is much less than the general population, which is why they would have money, which is why they would hire my firm to invest it for them. So my clients, again, it isn't that they don't have really nice houses or nice cars. It's just that for the most part, they buy not only what they can just afford, but what they have put money aside to own. And so most of them don't have mortgages. They're certainly not the ones that are, 50 plus. They've paid their mortgages off. Yeah, they could make more money by investing that money and having a lower mortgage rate and deducting it from their taxes and all that kind of stuff. But bottom line is they look at their homes not as a showpiece, not as something to brag about, but something that represents security and resilience in their life. And the sooner that thing can get paid off, the faster the house becomes an appreciating asset and something that's resilient and something that's going to be there regardless of whether the economy or the stock market go up and down. So they're that way with their house. When it comes to cars, very, very, very few of my clients have car payments. And it's not because they're all paying cash and driving brand new Lamborghinis. It's because they are driving Toyotas and Hondas and Ford pickup trucks and other such things that are good, reliable forms of transportation and that they've owned for a long time. And they've just paid them off and they don't feel the need to drive something expensive to feel good about themselves, right? They feel good about themselves because they're building wealth. Because rather than getting hooked up to the chain and ball of debt slavery, they've chosen to earn, save, and invest. And I know some of you are finding it hard to believe what I'm saying. You're thinking, oh, this guy is just cheap. He's beyond frugal. And, maybe I am. But go out and do your own homework. Go out and look at the actual marketing and business studies that have been done on consumer products and specifically on the higher end, luxury end of consumer products. The really expensive vehicles, the really expensive watches, the expensive vacations that people take. All those things that are marketed to everybody as, the affluent lifestyle. But look at the research. A third or less of the people that own luxury items or have luxury experiences, a third or less of those people are in the upper end of net worth, meaning that those are the people that actually have the wealth to justify owning those type products. But the other 2/3 of the people, they don't have that wealth. They're just trying to look wealthy. Now, they may have high income, but just because you earn a lot of money doesn't mean you have money if you spend it all. And the other third of those people that own those luxury items that are looking all rich and bougie, yeah, you know what? They are broke. They don't even have a high income. They have simply found a way to borrow or otherwise acquire enough money to temporarily be owning those products, or we should probably say leasing those luxury products, because they don't have the income nor the net worth to support them. And that's why when they get laid off from their job, or if they get a divorce and they lose their 2 incomes, or any type of little financial emergency crops up, these people declare bankruptcy and go broke because they are broke. They're just living under a charade and an illusion of having wealth because they have nice things. Those are the people that can't buy happiness with money because they're not spending their money on happiness promoting things. They're spending money on things that put them in debt, give them more aggravation and headaches, and cause them to spend even more money. They're in a death-bound consumer spiral. They're living in slavery. The good news is that even if you're living that lifestyle, you don't have to be. You can change. It's up to you. Learn how to earn, save, and then invest. And more about all that in future episodes. We're coming up on Labor Day weekend. I plan on taking some time off. I hope you get to do the same. And until then, as always, this is John Pugliano wishing you the very best returns.